I think music was kind of in my family house from the start. My brother used to sing. Everybody used to play percussion, and it was kind of all over the place. But something changed when the first synthesizer made it to our home, and I took it upon myself to kind of explore the instrument, and then I tried to kind of mimic melodies and things, and so there was like my first connection to what I hear. I tried to translate it into an instrument, and then I was like convinced that this is what I would like to do, and then the second thing was, I think, when I had my first kind of MIDI arranger workstation keyboards, like with 16 tracks of MIDI. And I was like, okay, I can record on this on a click and then listen to what I just played on the keys. And I couldn't figure out how to do like edits and stuff, so I had to kind of do one shot the whole thing. So I was kind of planning, okay, I do this a few times like this, and then I go to the other part, and that kind of thinking kind of triggered something, I think, that has to do with what I do today. So back in the days, it was like one track, one take from beginning to end, and then you go to the next instrument, and you go to the next instrument, and you go to the next instrument. So you had to kind of imagine how the song should sound, or should be like the form of the song, before even recording it, and project that, and then do it while leaving place for different tracks. I think this is kind of epic moments where I kind of realized, okay, well, this is something I like doing, and I like imagining things before doing them, and and get into that process.
عمار وتصوت إديسيون ستوديو عمار وتصوت تقدم الشاب حسن تاج. ايوا 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 اي
This is actually where, in a lot of practices, the tool becomes dominant on the user. Let's say, when you don't imagine or project or even master the tool, very often you end up with something that the instrument dictated to you. So you kind of it should be the other way around. It should be you imagine something, and the tool is just there to kind of assist you in making it happen. But in some way, practicing this kind of projection / imagination discipline, mental discipline, allows you to actually control, or at least explore what you want to explore. There's always a place for accidents. There's always place for something unexpected happening, but it should be out of will to actually get lost with the instruments, or with the tools, or in a certain idea or a landscape. So yeah, it's something that is quite important, and I had the chance to kind of realize that with very rudimentary tools from the start. in the same time that I was having my classical training, I was studying Arabic music, Tunisian music. So the art of the maqam and quarter tones, and a completely different, like a totally different system, you know. So from day one, I had the Western system and also the Arabic slash Maghreban and Oriental music system. So I was studying both, you know. And so right away you realize, okay, we have a different type of aesthetics. We have different priorities, and um, and that gives you kind of an insight within the aesthetic of this genre. Yeah. So, sorry. Something I realized very early that a lot of the breaking down of the aesthetic had to do with the language. So, uh, like like for instance, Arabic dialect from Algeria to Egypt to Lebanon to Syria, it's different. It's completely different, and within that, there is all sort of rhythmical subdivisions in how the language is expressed. You know, uh, in Tunisia, the dialect is very, you know, like very chopped somehow. You know, so in the rhythm you'll find this, and even in, like if you ask a violin player to make an improvisation, you will see that the notes are very chopped. You know, the attacks. It happens a lot in the attacks and where the sound ends also. In Egypt, it's more like smooth. It's just a direct correlation with how the language in the dialect is expressed. Although it's the same kind of same root language, kind of. Yeah, it's not exactly that, but yeah, you know, we can say that. So there was a correlation, and that correlation allowed me to kind of not work within genres, you know, and mostly work within human expression, like really the micro expressions. So understanding all these micro expressions also can allow you to understand better a wider scope of traditions. It doesn't have to be something that you're familiar with, you know, or something that you belong to, you know, because it gets down to how good you can you observe how the language expresses itself, how the body language also, and make a correlation to what is important in the aesthetic of that music, you know. So I think it's quite a very nuanced kind of process because every music, every tradition, it's kind of it's a it's an exploration process. You don't know what you're gonna find, you know, and sometimes it's just right in front of you. You cannot see it. So it's really about gathering as much language as possible to be able to work beyond genres, you know, because the genre, I think, it is a classification that is economically based, you know, like yeah, like Western music. I mean, if there were like if the Western world didn't have an economical dominance on technology and all sort of things related to that and music business and stuff, the whole perception would have been different. You know, imagine that imagine a world that is like a Oriental music dominant. You know, like back in the days when China ruled the world, or the Mongols, or I don't know. So the perception would be completely different, and the perception of the genre itself would be completely different. Now we're going towards the singularity point, you know, where everything mixes up, and because of the internet and because of the technology and high speed bandwidth, also you know, the information is circulating very quick, and we have access to a tremendous amount of information. So how to make sense of it? And I think this is the most challenging thing for the musician and the producer, especially of today. You know, producers back in the days, they had different challenges. Today is finding a way to translate all this. You know, back in the days it was all separated geographically, physically. To hear certain music, you have to go there. You know, today you just click a few buttons on YouTube, and you probably find some resources. So, yeah. So, how to get a deeper understanding of all that? That was one of the things I focused on. So, I decided to be very methodical in this, and every time I'm interested in something, I do years of research, and usually I start research in a very slow pace, listening to things that interest me for many years, not a project in mind, just out of curiosity. And then eventually, one day, I will have enough resources and information to actually say, oh, I see something happening here with this. I would like to kind of pursue it as a project now, And this is what happened with the Maghreb. This is what happened with the last album, with the South India, I mean, I started with the Indian music 20 years ago. So it just was simply not the time, it took all the time it took. And for me, it's not putting pressure also on myself, because I do it out of passion. It's out of interest, out of, fascination. So I also went 5 times or 6 times to Greece, studied rebetiko music did a whole research about that, Is there a serious project about it? No, not yet. But maybe it will come, maybe it will not. So I'm engaging different musics that actually help me have a global view on each problem when it comes, So I think this is how I kind of found my way through all this. So the Maghreb was kind of much easier because I grew up in these kind of things. So it wasn't mixing Maghreb music with electronics or, For me, it was not like that. At least in my head, it was not like that. It was more like fantasizing about a different presence, I would say. Something like, what if the whole colonial thing didn't happen, with France and with all these countries, Italy. What if that didn't happen, and economically the region kind of developed in a different way, and we actually did develop technology and electronic instruments, and how would we translate our own music if we had that kind of, 40 years heads up, So that was kind of my thing. It's like, what if we were free?
جاتك شلاية وبنية تملة جاتك شلاية هي بنية تملة وشعرها مدار بيته بالحملة مشتاته طاية طاح في اللطاه شرقي جابت ولاية هير يا حجاه جابت ولاية هير يا حجاه سلم العلاية هي زرق الوشمة صايم رمضان وش الكلاه مشاية هي يحلي ريقي ما صغرى مشاية هي يحلي ريقي ما حالي الخاية هي دم من ايدي حش من قاية دم النساء
The extreme masculinity in this case, you could look at it in a different way, you know. So it could be also like pushing something to the extreme to point out the absence of something else, which is femininity, for instance. You know, in a space that like you have zero femininity, how can you express that or like work on the relationship between genders or like archetypes, I would say, in this sense, is to push one of them to the extreme, and then you kind of show what kind of result you can have. You know, like in this case, it could be also that they are fighting out of missing out on the other side, you know, and it could be that is also this kind of thing that you find in also in a lot of practices, religious practices, is to kind of endure pain to reach a moment of ecstasy, you know, to feel something basically. And these kind of things you find them even in the modern society today, where people you know, engage in painful processes just to feel something, you know. It's horrible, but it is something that exists, you know. And this is also one of the things when we disconnect, you know, we disconnect from essential things about our own being, you know. And so you see, when the imagery is kind of fantastic imagery, you know, like kind of a bit imaginary, and you have a whole array of possibilities and subjects to explore, you know. So I prefer this. I like working with open spaces when it comes to images, you know. There's no predefined one dominant idea. There's many, you know, and I think that's kind of cool. The cool thing with the Ammar 808 project is that from day one I knew that I was going to study and explore and work on different chapters. Yeah, even before starting the Maghreb music, the Maghreb United album. The, why? Because it was a very much like a need that I thought, okay, I wanted to do something personal, like something really that represents me, and like a monophonic kind of one way kind of thing. It doesn't really represent me. I'm like this interested in interested in many things at the same time. Along the whole process, like I do mixing, I record myself the whole music. I had a I have a musicology degree. All sort of different steps of the process, and I knew that I'm gonna do different musics and all what the things that interest me. And basically, I had a conversation with my girlfriend one day, and we're saying, yeah, I'm feeling like a personal project's happening right now, but I don't know how to articulate it. And at the end of the conversation, it was clear that I wanted to kind of put all my hobbies and all my passions in one place, and that was Ammar 808. So it was a combination of sci-fi, because I'm a big fan of sci-fi, and sci-fi, Star Trek, and all these things, with all my interest in traditional musics around the world. And somehow it made sense, and so the Maghreb was a logical starting point, something I know very well, and I didn't need any time to prepare or anything. I just had to do it.